terms of that word, I'd like to suggest transferable.
Okay, we might have a vote at the end as to which term.
If that's an option. It's easy for you to say, I think.
It is a lot easier.
Let's move on. So just a quick couple of slides about who Secure are, just really to let you realise that we're not a manufacturer that works out of the back of a shed in the bottom of somebody's garden. We're a huge global company that operate all over the world. I've been around since '87 as Secure, but before that as other businesses too. Huge number of customers all over the world, and smart metering is something we've been involved in for probably the last 10 years, going back to Australian smart metering rollouts, etc. I think there's a slide disappeared there, actually there should have been one in between. We've been heavily involved in the smart metering rollout in the UK. Whether you like it or not, good press, bad press, we've got about 5.5, 6 million meters now on the wall that operate the same platform that this equipment now works upon. In the home, there's two devices. There's the bit that does the intelligent bit on the left-hand side, which is we call the Liberty Connect 100, and the Pipit is the bit that the tenant interacts with. So this is, as I said, based on smart metering technology. It's the interface between the actual heat meter and the Pipit, and also obviously with the customer, and it converts consumption information, easy for me to say, into a fiscal value. It adds that element of control, i.e. in the pay-as-you-go world we can't disconnect, people self-disconnect by not topping up, and it's compatible with most heat meters and heat interfaces on the market today. It's really easy to install and commission. That was a driver for the business, knowing that there's 56 million meters got to be changed in the smart metering world. It has to be easy, it has to be quick with so many meters to fit. And I think what that also says about the solution is it's ideal for retrofit. It's got lots of tamper detection and alerts, and recently we've done a development that takes out the heat network data, and we'll talk about a little bit more about that later. And it can operate in credit or pay-as-you-go mode, and that can be changed remotely. You're not stuck with that. And I find it really frustrating when people say, oh, there's a project of 500 and there's 100 social housing, so we'll put pay-as-you-go in social housing, making the assumption that they're the people that are not going to pay, which is in reality is not the case at all. The display, it's a real-time energy display. It's easy to use, operate and understand. Most people don't need the instruction book to work it out. Importantly, it uses money as a language, so none of us can open your wallet and pull out a kilowatt hour. I'm sure maybe I can't pull out a pound today. I'm not been paid yet, but I understand what money is. It helps people set targets, individual targets, so that they can work out what can I afford a month, and the way this operates, so there's little LEDs at the top will say you're over or under your daily budget that you've set for yourself. It's a simple wireless connection, so we can go anywhere in the property, enforcing that there, and it complies with a smart metering data security requirements, obviously because we've been involved in. It's the same device that we've installed in so many homes. Customer SMSs, so you can communicate via SMS with a resident. A bit big brotherish, because you can see if they've actually opened it already at the back end too. It gives audible alarms on low credit and things like that. And what I wanted to talk about is not interoperability, but transferable protocol. And the way this solution is deployed is that there's an individual GPRS connection in every home. So there's no reliance on a network within a building, a large building of properties. So if one, slow down. What did you say?
I said
So
great.
yeah, so you get rid of your ADSL problem. The beauty of this is we know that you know how many meters there are, and you know which ones you're not communicating with. That's, I think, with GPRS, that's people's worry generally, is that, well, you know, the signal strength. Well, the way this operates is we don't need signal going through the roof, believe it or not. You don't need to go in and go, oh, I've got 5 bars, it'll work, because the amount of data that we take every day is quite small, and over that 5-6 million meters, we're communicating with probably 99% of those every day. But the important bit is the 1%, we know exactly which property they're in that we're not communicating with, so we know where to go and find where are the issues. It's, as I say, from that, it's a robust architecture, communications is reliable, and there's no single point of catastrophic failure, so you're not relying on next door's meter working to read your meter. And transferable, the important thing. We've got a number of metering billing providers that we work with that, in terms of what they promise, we give everybody the same platform and the same piece of equipment to work with, and how they deploy it is what sets them apart, and their standards and what they deliver sets people apart. I was asked to talk about emergency and friendly credit. So again, there might be a bit of granny sucking eggs here, but emergency credit is essentially the maximum risk to the housing association. So if every property was given £5 of emergency credit, the unit will disconnect when it reaches £5. So it's minimising the risk and controlling that. It's really flexible. You could have 1,000 residents on 1,000 different emergency credits if you could get someone to manage that for you. Friendly credit is something that's quite nice for the metering and billing company and the resident too. So let's say, for example, Cyprus are in the room today. If their offices are open 9 till 5, what we do with friendly credit is say, outside of those hours, after 5 and between 9 in the morning, we'll disconnect no one. And the weekend we treat as friendly credit, so no one gets disconnected outside of that. No one's trying to ring and panic, they're running out of credit, they've got no energy. The minute 9 o'clock arrives the following morning and they've exceeded their limit, then it will disconnect, but it gives them that comfort that, you know, someone doesn't have to go wandering the streets on a cold night if we do go back to the old days of topping up down the shop.
Do you get an audio? You get like an alarm? Would you get an alarm?
Yeah, and also what I didn't mention with the emergency and these credits is you have to, as a resident, accept them. You can't just force people to go into debt, so they do have to press a button and say, yeah, I'll accept that. But that's no big hardship, I believe.
Is there a way of actually monitoring how many times a resident has gone into credit, and if it's becoming a behavior or?
Yeah, I think there are,
events?
from your point of view, you can do reports on which people, there are some people that will live in that region. I mean, we try to discourage that, obviously. But you can identify the more vulnerable people through the way they behave, and people are creatures of habit. We've kind of used this system for nearly 30 years in Northern Ireland, the basics of this, so we know how people behave.
Sorry? Is it actually a meter or data?
It's a data logger, really. It's an intelligent data logger. It doesn't. We work with another meter. Happy with that? Any more questions? I'm surprised to get any questions from the floor. Debt recovery. We've talked. People have talked extensively today about not being paid. The unit itself can have an amount of debt loaded onto the back end, and that can be recovered over a period of time in a fair way. So if you say set a 10% recovery rate, if someone puts £10 on the meter, they'll actually get £9 on the meter, £1 off the debt, and it's all taken care of in the back end. Nobody has to think about it. As soon as the debt's paid off, it switches back to 100% credit. So, as I say, done in a fair and affordable way. No letters to send out either, which is nice. We take security as a business very, very, very seriously. We've obviously with that amount of meters that we're communicating with. So one of the protocols we don't share is the way we get money from the back end onto the meter, because we're handling millions of pounds every week as a business, and that, you know, you're putting your trust in us to deal with that. And I think in all of that time we've never had a meter hacked, which is something to be proud of, I think. So everything is encrypted in terms of what's sent to the meter. We've got ISO 27001, what's the word, vetted by experts, as it were. Some of the things we've already covered on, I think there's a trend today, so I've got a couple of slides about what we've developed recently in terms of the efficiency side and monitoring the efficiency or the inefficiency of heat networks. So some of the major issues that I'm sure you've all seen and can identify with is high heat losses, poorly commissioned, as Will rightly said, low utilisation, so over-speccing of the plant, leading to higher tariffs and identifying losses, and in the end giving poor value. Just a snapshot of some of the work that we're doing. Blossom is not a real site, it's a figment of someone's imagination, but there's a site literally a stone's throw from here that we used to help develop this, and we very quickly found that one of the properties had a problem with an underfloor heating pump, and we've worked out that underfloor heating pump was going to cost every resident £45 a year extra, but we were able to identify it very quickly and go in and fix it. So I'm not going to go on about this. If you want to talk about this, we're available to do that beyond here, but that's just to give you a flavour of what we're doing. Hopefully it's been informative.
Is this a product in itself?
It's part of the whole package. So it's a suite of products to, as Will said before, about ensuring that systems are commissioned properly, so that's part of it, and then the ongoing monitoring is also part of it. And because we've got access to I think the fiscal side of it, because we know the tariff within the unit, we can also talk about the losses in terms of money as well as energy and heat losses within the building.
From the meter itself.
Yeah, but this is on the secondary side.
So is this a separate software product?
Yes.
On the home display unit, is it possible to send messages, so if there is an outage on the network that the operator has identified, is it possible to tell the customers
It is.
that their operator is aware of an issue and they're fixing it?
Absolutely. I mean, for the messages, that's one use. I've probably never thought of that one, but also letting people know that there's going to be a hike in tariff or all kinds of things. You might just want to wish them Merry Christmas, but yeah, there's no restriction to the use of.
Yeah.
I just wonder what actually happens when there's disconnection, when they have it topped off, there's no friendly funds going into the meters. What is disconnection to the customer?
So
What would they experience?
what would their experience be? I mean, if they've got the proper paperwork in place, they would understand that they've had a warning that they're credit's going to be exhausted, so they would they'd have no heating and hot water. Individual housing bodies have arrangements with their metering and billing company that the ones that we work with, how to react to that. So some may, I'm sure most of them look favourably upon it, and you can, I don't know, some may have it as a little debt, and we can collect that separately.
Yeah.
But, the
I'd
idea
say
is
so.
not to lift people.
Yeah, I'd say so. What the customer experiences, they would have no heat or hot water. If they go over if the friendly credit limit finishes, if it's Monday morning 9 o'clock, unless they phone up and top up again, they'll have no heat and hot water. What we found when I was working at a housing association, the most reason that people went over their friendly credit was if they'd been away on holiday, because there's a daily charge within the tariff. Say it's 50p a day, and if you're away for 2 weeks, that builds up. And you come home and you go, but I haven't used the heating and hot water, why is there no credit? And some people also, they've got chaotic lives, and that can happen as well. And we had a couple of people who just couldn't pay. So then what we were able to do is put that debt. It's fairly rare to have a big debt on a pay-as-you-go meter just because of this. Otherwise, you get no heat and hot water. Whereas credit billing, it can rack up to hundreds of pounds. So what would happen? We'd have a conversation. We had support workers who could, go in. Housing officer, they've probably got, if they've got chaotic lifestyles, they've probably got interventions happening with their rent and all those sorts of things going on as well. And we can say, right, okay, if it was £100, we put that on the back of the meter like Ian said, and they could pay it off at 10% or less or more, or they could pay it off in a lump sum. I mean, we also had, so it was Southern Housing, and it's pay-as-you-go across the whole of the portfolio, even the penthouse flats that are privately occupied, and everybody had pay-as-you-go. And some of those were sort of bought off plan for private renting and stuff like that. So if that was in debt because they hadn't had a tenant for a while, they would just go, right, here's 200 quid, pay off the bill, let's start again. So it totally depends on who your customer is.
Can the information be provided in different languages? If
Think-
someone if a resident
Everybody
is
understands
speaking
money?
English or reading
Yeah.
No,
I
we
think-
don't.
yeah, go
No,
on.
we don't have an option at the moment for the display to be multilingual. I don't know. My boss is here. Maybe you should ask him if we can make that happen. We've
think-
never been asked, and we've never been, never.
But I assume the instructions will be provided in.
Yes, they can be multilingual. Yeah.
And I think the platforms that you use as well for the billing, because I know Cyclops offer multilingual.
Oh.
Is there any other questions? We've got about 5 minutes before the break for anything you've heard today, either to Will or Nicholas or Ian or anything else you just want to share.
I've got one around the closed protocol, when I was talking about closed protocol, I think it's also the fact that even if a system is open protocol, with your gas and electricity bills, you may or may not notice that you are being recharged for that equipment use because Southern Electric is using it for, I don't know, another, British Gas. But with heat metering providers, the few that you speak to which talk about, okay, yeah, somebody else can manage this system, but actually we're going to charge, £85 to £100 per metre on top of that, and therein lies the problem in terms of making even if it is open protocol, it cost effective for the resident to actually say, okay, no, actually you're not doing the right job, let's move it somewhere else.
And I think that's going to be the biggest, one of the big things with the viability tool. So you've got the people, let's say they're in shelter accommodation or older people accommodation, and they're paying a service charge. As soon as when I pay my gas bill, there is a metering billing charge, but it's teeny weeny because it's British Gas and they're enormous ones. As soon as you put in individual meters and you have a metering and billing provider, or you decide to do that in-house, but then you would need lots of staff. It's like L&Q, for example, have that model. There is a cost for you running that metering and billing, and that is quite a significant increase in that bill. And I got invited to go to some testing of the very early testing of the viability tool, and it was something that I raised and said it's not just the financial viability of physically buying the kit and installing the kit, it's then the ongoing viability for that customer to be able to pay for it. So I think that would be interesting, and when that consultation comes out so the viability tool is going to be consulted on, so I think that's something as a sector we should be saying today.
I mean, there's two aspects to the metering and billing, which is mainly transferable. There's also data collection, data handling, which is sometimes proprietary, but can be a more open system. Not true open like Linux, but
Yeah.
defined language that providers can use. So I think that's the difference between what point explain.
Is there a way of actually doing at the commissioning phase of, let's say, a block or two, to actually do a sense check of call scan from a single point using the secure system? If you connect at one position, you would be able to check that every meter is recording, and also the performance data, flow and return temperatures, and everything. You can do a single step commissioning check.
Yes and no. The signal part of it is part of the commission. Whoever commissions that unit, he cannot walk away from that unit thinking, is it working or is it not? Because it tells him that it's working. He gets the signal strength displayed to him, which we always have to record. And also, the tariff is not stored locally, so the tariff comes down as part of the commissioning procedure. So if the tariff has arrived, you 100% know that it's communicated. 100%, not 95, not 99, 100.
This is
So
during,
communication-wise, you know that the comms is working.
this is during commissioning to say if a building has gone towards commissioning, to sign off the commissioning that you have hit the right flow and return temperatures.
So that's separately. So we're talking about communication. I'm talking about communication to the outside world.
Sure.
In terms of the data, I think probably a separate discussion, like I said, about how we verify the performance of the heat network is I mean, what we've done is basically developed an app that makes it very, very simple for people to follow a verification process, so that every property is done over on a level platform. No, you have to be on site. There's certain actions that you have to do, because we want to make sure that the HRU is operating in keep warm, hot water and heating mode, all modes to the design spec that Will talked about.
I think it's a different conversation, like you're saying.
Absolutely.
You're going to commission the appliance, the heating system, so your engineers will know the temperatures. Then obviously this system will work in the background once you've done that, and
Yes.
it'll give you the detail you so require it. So it's two different aspects of it.
I think one of the other things as well is that the way we do the verification tool, it creates an asset register of everything that's in the property too, which is, I think, knowing some of the difficulties that some HOs and LAs have in knowing what assets they've got. That's a useful thing in itself that for us was just a complete byproduct. It was blimey, we've developed an asset register.
Yeah,
You know, I'll be honest with you, it
I was
wasn't
just
by
saying
design.
that, I mean, if it's just access to data that you want during the construction phase or the commissioning phase, Psychus as a business, if we've commissioned a particular unit or credit billing system or anything, we start collecting that data from that minute, we're storing that data, and that data is available on online things that we're doing and offering now to contractors in the construction phase to have access to that data, whether it be 5 minute data to start with, we can decide with Camden where we're providing 5 minute data just for the commissioning phase, and then it reduced down to half hourly or daily or whatever the client's request is. Access to that data at any point, as long as the system's been commissioned, should be available.
Okay, at the back, yeah.
Doesn't that conflict with data protection?
What access it, giving the data?
Well, if we've got an open system, you know, I can access personal data.
It's not open.
It's not open.
So,
It's done by flat, it's not done by person. Is that
Yeah,
right?
it would be
Yeah.
by
by
serial
serial
number.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't say Mrs. Smith.
No, absolutely
No.
not. No.
we
no.
work on serial numbers only,
Right.
so it's the 8 digit, the same as the utility industry do.
Yeah.
So we all know that 8 digit number is in that property.
But it would show in consumption usage.
Yes. But I would say if it's during the construction phase, no one's living in there anyway. It's a building site that you want that
Yeah,
data for your construction.
let's say you have 100 meters on a block, you get a list of your master data, you check against flow and return temperature, then make sure that they're all reading and the flow temperature to be in fact is what we expect. And then the personal data is when that data is uploaded onto the customer services platform, that's on the personal data.
For performance point of view, you don't need to. You can anonymise it, so you don't need to know the person
Yes.
that it. You know, obviously consumption is different because that person is generating a financial transaction, whether it be pay as you go or credit billing later. So you need to know where to send the bill to. So there's no getting away from that. In terms of data and data protection, we will conform to GDPR or whatever we have to, because my boss doesn't like paying fines. So there's no doubt that you know, from that point of view, we'll operate within the law.
As a meter manufacturer, we don't store any personal data. We don't know who is living in that property. We just get to see the meter serial number and the consumption data. That's all.
And I think where the personal data comes in would be a platform like what Psychus do, which we're going to hear about later. Right, I'm going to call break. Oh, no, one more quick one, yeah.
Sorry, on transparency.
Yeah.
Because I know you were speaking about transparency earlier. What would you recommend in terms of how much information can you actually give the customer? Say, for example, if they demand to see supply agreements and they want to know about who's actually supplying your gas, so that they can sort of work it or rather tally it with what they're paying. What would you recommend?
Will, do you want to answer?
Yeah, I'm going to come on to metering a bit later, but I'd say don't be scared to disclose everything you can. I think if you try to kind of just give headlines, inevitably customers will start digging, because especially if there's any complaints and problems, they'll ask more and more questions, they'll take more and more time internally. So our recommendation is be very explicit, saying almost this is what we pay for gas, this is the efficiency of the system, this is who we get from, and this is how we get value for money. So I'll come into that a bit more, but don't be scared to disclose it, because otherwise it creates a lot more work down the chain.
Would you recommend they come in then into the office to see us, or should just send the information to them?
I'll come on to communications, but I think designing very kind of succinct, clear, plain English documentation at every phase can preempt a lot of the questions you'll get. I don't think you need to necessarily have face-to-face meetings for everyone. I think 90% of people will get it from paperwork if you make it similar to what they're used to with gas and electricity. So I think I'll talk about it a bit after the break, but yeah, follow the kind of that as a guiding principle. People are very used to paying standing charges and unit charges, and if you can make that clear for them, they'll get it, and you'll avoid a lot of work 12, 24 months down the line.
Great. Thank you very much, and thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
We're going to have a